Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you send us, all the articles, the research, sometimes even unique media, and we try to extract what matters.
We find the essential knowledge, right? The surprising bits, and especially for today, the actual mechanics of what drives these really high-stakes situations.
And today is, well, it's a fascinating mission. It's built around a source that is truly one of a kind. We have the full transcript from an AI-generated film or maybe a video called Two Friends, One Island, Zero Escape.
It's an incredible document. I mean, mostly because of how short it is and how precise.
Yeah.
It's a hyper-accelerated survival manual, but it's all just distilled into dialogue. And you, our listener, you wanted us to really dissect this, to understand how these two guys, Mike and Jake, go from just catastrophic isolation.
Zero escape.
Yeah, zero escape to a successful extraction. We survived. And it all happens in what feels like just a few hours.
Exactly. This is not that slow burn, the psychological decline you see in most survival stories. This is just pure, intense problem solving. So we need to go beyond just saying what happened.
Right.
We're going to analyze the core structure that this AI used, which, when you look at it, it breaks down this incredibly complex thing, survival, into four really critical, really rapid phases.
Realization, establishment, communication, and then finally extraction.
And what's so fascinating here, I think, is that the dialogue is so sparse, it's so minimal that you're forced to infer everything. You have to figure out their competence, their emotional state from just a handful of words.
Oh, absolutely. And the questions we're asking are, what's that mental switch that flips them from being a victim to being an agent?
Yeah.
What kind of specialized skills do you have to succeed this quickly?
And what are the little details in the script? The atmosphere, the state of the tech they find. What does that hint at? Is there a bigger untold story here?
That's the core of it, really.
Yeah. We're treating this little script like a case study in, I don't know, accelerated crisis management. So let's unpack it. Let's jump right into the deep end, starting with part one, realization and initial adaptation. That first shock of isolation, the moment Mike and Jake really get the gravity of their situation. So the very first lines, they just plunge us right into this atmosphere. It's deeply unsettling, but it's not chaotic.
No, not at all. They're clearly adrift. They've probably survived whatever happened first, a wreck, a storm, something, and their first focus is on the lack of sound.
Right. One of them just says, "It's so quiet out here. Too quiet."
And that phrase, too quiet, that might be the single most profound psychological trigger in this whole script.
How so?
Well, when your brain goes through a trauma, like a shipwreck, it expects noise. It expects confusion, shouting, crashing.
Right, Kegel.
Exactly. So once that initial, adrenaline-fueled chaos is over, the silence that follows, the brain doesn't read that as peace. It reads it as a vacuum, an existential void. It completely shifts the threat. The loud external threat is gone, and now the real threat is this insidious internal one of just infinite isolation.
And you see them try to manage that anxiety immediately. The response is almost defensive, trying to downplay it. That's just the ocean being dramatic.
It's a classic coping mechanism. They're trying to maintain cognitive control before they even start dealing with the sharks or the lack of water.
It's a control denial.
Precisely. Trying to keep things normal in a totally impossible situation. But that attempt, it just gets shattered by the very next thing they have to do.
Yeah.
The thing that confirms they are totally, completely cut off from everything.
The cell phone check, of course. In any modern story, that's the first thing you do. It's that electronic umbilical cord back to the world.
And the result is just definitive.
Yeah.
No signal, none at all.
Yeah.
And the other one confirms it. Yeah, nothing.
And that's when the reality just hits. The question, so we're actually lost.
You see, losing your signal in the 21st century, I'd argue it's almost more catastrophic, at least initially, than losing your supplies.
Because it removes all hope of outside help.
Instantly. It's the absolute, irrefutable confirmation of isolation. For Mike and Jake, it means the whole search and rescue infrastructure, satellites, the Coast Guard, calling your family, all of it is just gone. And that failure, it forces this immediate, really difficult mental pivot to total self-reliance.
And this is where we get what might be the most important line in the entire script. It's the moment one of them completely reframes the whole disaster.
The mental anchor.
Yeah, exactly. He just counters with, "Not lost, just not found yet."
We really have to spend some time on this line because it's the core intellectual mechanism that I think guarantees they're going to succeed.
Okay, break that down.
In survival psychology, this is what's known as cognitive reframing. The word lost. It implies a state of being. You're passive. You're subject to fate. You have no agency. And when your mind accepts that concept, you can spiral really, really fast into paralysis or despair.
I see the difference. Not found yet. That shifts the entire locus of control.
It does. It transfers the control from all the external circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
the ocean, the fact that no one knows where they are. It brings it back to them,
Hmm.
to Mike and Jake. It implies that their rescue is an ongoing process and that they are active participants in it.
It's a mission statement.
It's a mission statement. Their job now is to make themselves findable.
That framing is just incredibly smart. But let me push back a little here because I can hear a listener thinking this. Isn't there a danger that that kind of, radical positivity, that it minimizes the actual existential danger they're in? Could it lead to recklessness?
That's a crucial question. And the differences between reckless optimism and what I would call controlled agency. Reckless optimism might be, trying to swim to a shore you can barely see, or eating strange berries. Controlled agency, though, that means you acknowledge the danger. You're alone, but you only focus your energy on the steps you can actually take.
And in the script, that's exactly what happens. That phrase is immediately followed by them spotting land and rowing. They don't just sit there feeling good about their new mindset.
Precisely. It's a productive mindset, not a naive one. And what it does is it prevents the onset of that psychological paralysis, which is often the first and the most silent killer in any survival situation.
And because they keep that agency, the whole situation just pivots instantly. Right after they confirm they're isolated, they see land. Look, they're an island. Oh my God, we're saved.
The structure of this short story is just brilliant. It maximizes the emotional spikes. They hit the absolute lowest point, no signal, and then bam, they get the massive high of seeing land.
Landfall becomes the immediate life-saving goal. It guarantees they won't die of exposure out on the open sea.
And you can feel their energy shift. I'm rowing as fast as that I can. That physical act of reaching the shore, it provides this necessary release of all that pent-up tension. We made it. We're actually on land. Feels unreal.
That feeling of solid ground under your feet must be primal.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the narrative is smart. It's quick to remind you that survival is just a series of these short-lived reliefs, and they're always followed by a new challenge.
Right. The relief of being on land is immediately replaced by the need for an environmental assessment.
And that doubt starts to creep back in. It almost echoes that earlier silence.
Yeah.
The island is described as just beautiful, but quiet.
It's an unnerving kind of quiet.
And this quiet is different from the first one. The first was the quiet of the sea, just swallowing all sound. This is the quiet of human absence. Their assessment is fast, and it's definitive. I don't think anyone lives here.
Followed by that final judgment. Yeah, this place is empty.
So if you think about the survival hierarchy, why is making that distinction uninhabited versus inhabited? Why is that so critical in the first few minutes? Why not say immediately look for fresh water?
It's got to be about resource allocation, strategic triage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If the island were inhabited, their first priority would be completely different. They'd be looking for paths, structures, maybe signs of a well or a spring that people use. That takes a lot of energy moving around quickly.
But since it's empty?
Since it's definitively empty, the entire strategy shifts. It's no longer find civilization, it's establish a defensible residency.
Which means they have to stop being seekers and they have to immediately become builders, providers.
Precisely. They have no safety net. They have to secure the absolute basics for, well, maybe long-term self-sufficiency before they try anything else. This forces an immediate shift in their timeline. The clock isn't ticking against a search radius anymore. Now it's ticking against exposure. They have to become master triagers of their immediate environment.
And that immediate shift, it just forces them into that second critical phase, establishment. And in the script, it just compresses what's normally a 72-hour survival timeline into this rapid-fire series of successes, all focused on shelter, sustenance, and security, all within the first few hours on land.
The first thing that really stands out is the sequencing of their successes. Most survival guides, they hammer on about water. Water is the immediate priority. You can only live 3 days without it.
Right.
And yet the first successful action that they mention is food. Got to bite, dinner is coming.
Which implies one of them, Jake, is a competent fisherman or forager. He gets this high-impact, low-effort win right out of the gate. But yeah, why food first if water is biologically more critical?
I think it really speaks to the psychological side of early survival. Yes, water is paramount for your body, but that initial phase, it's just dominated by spending energy and having this huge morale deficit.
So getting food, even a small amount, is a huge mental boost.
Immense. It's an immediate psychological benefit. It's proof that this environment is actually survivable. and it gives them that immediate caloric input they need for the harder jobs ahead, like building a shelter or making a fire.
It fights back against that paralyzing helplessness we were talking about earlier.
Absolutely. The morale boost is a force multiplier. Think about it. If they'd spent, say, 4 hours looking for water and found nothing, their spirits would be dangerously low before they'd even started building. Securing that food early, it validates their efforts. It buys them the energy and, just as important, the mental bandwidth for the really critical life-saving tasks.
And those tasks follow immediately. And what's interesting is they're doing them at the same time. You see this really coordinated action. One says, I found wood for fire, and the other has that urgent realization, we need shelter before it gets dark. They know the setting sun is their biggest enemy.
That race against darkness, it's a universal, non-negotiable survival rule. When you lose daylight, the temperature drops, your visibility just plummets, and the risk of hypothermia goes up dramatically, even in what seems like a tropical place. So they have to deal with exposure and security right away. And the logic is that fire and shelter, if you do them simultaneously, they address the greatest threats of that first night.
Let's get into the logic of the fire for a second.
Okay, so fire is multifunctional, right? It's light, it's warmth, you can purify water with it, you can cook. But in those first few hours, it's primarily a security measure.
It creates a psychological boundary.
And a physical deterrent. It keeps away any potential nocturnal threats, and it just makes them feel less vulnerable.
And the shelter, I mean, it's not just about rain, it's about conduction, right? The ground pulling heat from your body.
Precisely. We're assuming it's tropical, but even then, exposure is a killer. Shelter construction is mostly about thermal dynamics. A quick lean-to has to protect you from the elements, sure, but most importantly, it has to insulate you from the ground.
So they need a raised bed or at least a thick layer of palm fronds or something.
Yes. Heat loss through conduction, just sitting or lying directly on the ground, it's incredibly rapid and it is relentless. It can lead to hypothermia, which is why you see them so focused on gathering materials so quickly.
The dialogue around the construction, it shows this really impressive level of coordination. They're not arguing or debating, they're just executing a plan. It's like they're an established engineering team. Let's find a safe spot, tie that branch over here, got it.
This is the practical engineering part of the crisis, and it suggests they have complementary skills and a really low friction relationship. There's just no time for deliberation. They're falling back on pre-learned skills and this sort of shared understanding of basic construction.
Yeah.
The ability to give a clear command like, tie that branch over here, and get an immediate positive confirmation. Got it, especially under that kind of duress. That is the hallmark of effective survival teamwork. It's what turns a pile of branches into a functional base.
And that one line, when one of them just says, this is actually working, it confirms that successful transition from theory, we need shelter, to this tangible reality of we have shelter.
That phrase, it just validates all their hard work. They've actively shaped their environment to meet their needs. They're not just subjects of the island anymore. They're temporary residents who have successfully dealt with the immediate environmental threats. And that physical action, it leads directly to the mental payoff.
The payoff being the fire. It moves them out of that survival panic and into a state of emotional stability.
Yeah.
One of them says, I'm glad we have fire, and the reply is so telling. Yeah, it finally feels safe.
The fire is the psychological anchor. You can imagine they spent hours building that shelter, maybe struggling to get a sustained flame going. Once that fire is lit and it's stable, it's not just warmth they get, it's a huge reduction in their perceived threat. They have light against the darkness, heat against the cold, and it's a signal to the outside world, however small it might be. They've established this controlled functioning microcosm inside a hostile macrocosm.
So their establishment phase is basically defined by successfully managing all those immediate biological and environmental threats. They've stabilized their physical state and, maybe more importantly, their mental state through achievement. They've survived the first 24 hours.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the critical transition, the thing they have to understand, is that this establishment is purely temporary. The shelter and the fire, they stop them from dying today. But they don't solve the long-term problem of getting out of there.
Right. They have to shift their focus from just residency to communication.
Exactly. Day one was all triage, right? Getting out of immediate danger. Day two has to be about getting out.
The threats change.
The threats completely change. On day one, the threats were exposure, maybe injury. On day two, the threats are now resource depletion, monotony, and that psychological fatigue, what they call the long wait. They
Yeah.
can't just rely on fishing and waiting for a ship to pass by. They need an active solution to break their isolation.
So, as the sun comes up on day 2, the whole narrative has to shift. It has to move from this passive defense to an active offense. It has to drive the plot toward a rescue. And you can feel their resolve. New day? Let's try again. We'll find something today.
That phrase is the signal. It's the move from maintenance to mission. They aren't just content to sit there and wait. They understand that rescue requires effort, and that commitment to a continuous, proactive search that is a vital characteristic of a successful survivor.
And this is the moment we hit that critical point in the narrative, the fulcrum, the discovery that changes absolutely everything. Did you see something weird? Take a look in this mark.
Something added to the leaves.
We really need to dissect that phrase, something added to the leaves. It tells you the object wasn't just, carelessly dropped there.
It implies concealment.
It implies concealment, or maybe a long period of decay where the natural environment has started to just grow over the object. It was integrated somehow into the natural camouflage. So if we go back to their initial assessment that the island was empty, this radio, it creates this huge, compelling contradiction. What does that placement suggest about the island's history or its previous interactions with people?
Well, it opens up a few really fascinating theories. If the island is truly uninhabited, then the radio has to be debris, right? But if it's debris, why is it semi-concealed?
Okay, so what are the possibilities?
1. A previous survivor. Someone may have deliberately hidden the radio to protect it from the salt and the rain, planning to come back for it later. 2. It's just a coincidence. A piece of flotsam washed ashore, and then the wind just quickly covered it with leaves. Camouflage by chance.
Or maybe it's from their own wreck.
Exactly. It could be a part of their own boat that washed ashore separately, meaning they've been walking right past their lifeline this whole time.
In any case, it implies the island isn't truly empty. It's a repository of either human failure or human ingenuity. And the moment they identify it, wait, this is a radio, their goal just shifts instantaneously.
Yes. They go from a long-term strategy, we have to sustain life here, to an imminent rescue strategy, we have to establish contact. The radio is the ultimate multiplier of hope. It's the difference between waiting for weeks and maybe just waiting for hours.
And the script immediately validates that one of them has a specialized skill. They're not just fumbling with it, they're actively repairing it. One of them clearly has technical knowledge. And the dialogue is so efficient. Tell me what you need.
This is where a deep dive is really necessary. What kind of technical expertise does that rapid repair imply? I mean, a radio you find on a beach, exposed to salt water, humidity. It would likely have corrosion, damaged wiring, a dead battery, maybe all three.
So we're talking about someone with at least basic electrical engineering knowledge working under incredible duress.
Absolutely. The survivor would have to know how to visually spot corrosion or short circuits. If the battery is dead, they might be trying to, jury rig a power source, maybe scavenging batteries from a flashlight or something else they salvaged. More likely, though, they're doing a quick field strip. Drying out salt water, reconnecting a crucial antenna wire or a ground, all with probably just a sharp stick or a piece of metal. The competence they display is just enormous.
And it shortens the crisis phase dramatically. If they didn't have that skill, the radio is just a useless piece of plastic. They'd be back to building a giant SOS on the beach with rocks, which could take days.
That quick fix is a narrative necessity, for sure, but it highlights a vital, real-world survival lesson. Specialized knowledge accelerates outcomes. It suggests that Mike or Jake had some kind of background, maybe sailing, engineering, maybe they were a ham radio operator, that gave them this crucial advantage over the average person.
Then comes the moment of truth, activating the distress signal. It's working. The signal is going out. Please, don't respond. The vulnerability in that line. It's all focused on those radio waves just leaving the island.
And this is the moment of active hope, finally replacing that controlled despair. They've done their part. They've stabilized, they've built, they've repaired, and now they're just broadcasting their existence into the void, hoping that the universal contract of search and rescue is actually honored. The tension here is almost unbearable, because success is no longer in their hands. It's totally dependent on some unknown person out there.
And the response is almost immediate, which gives us that crucial confirmation. We hear that distant voice, probably a rescue operator, say, "Hold on," picking up a distress signal.
That confirmation, that's the validation for every single thing they've done since that first moment of silence. It verifies that their isolation is temporary. It's finite. Now, from a narrative standpoint, the AI script compresses that waiting game severely, right? It knows the audience doesn't want to watch 3 days of silent anxiety.
Right. The response is instantaneous to maximize the emotional spike.
And the raw emotion just bursts through. Do you think someone hurt us? And that desperate, almost prayer-like response. They will. They have to. They have to. It's not about physics. It's about the psychological need for hope.
It's the final mental hurdle.
It is. They move from we have agency to we are validated. They've successfully transitioned from being not found yet to being found but not retrieved. The active problem-solving part is over. Now the last phase is just managing the emotional and the physical risk of the actual rescue.
So we're entering the fourth and final phase, extraction. And you'd think that getting the signal out would lower the tension, but it actually seems to increase it. One of them just says, Jake, I'm scared.
And that fear is so realistic. It's anticipatory anxiety. Think about it. They've been operating at peak performance for maybe, 36 hours? Now they are forced into this period of just passive waiting, where their minds can run wild with all the ways the rescue could go wrong.
The coordinates are off, the weather turns.
The helicopter breaks down, they're vulnerable again, and the proximity of the rescue, the fact that it's so close, it only heightens those emotional stakes.
And the response from the other friend is just so simple, so powerful. It's the anchor they need. I'm right here. We'll be okay.
That line is so critical to defining the success of their partnership. They're leveraging this bond they've built for psychological stability. The leader in this moment isn't the one who fixed the radio or caught the foliage. The leader is the one who provides calm and confidence in the face of this imminent risk. Their mutual reassurance is the final piece of their survival machine.
And then the ultimate visual payoff. Jake, look, a helicopter, we're saved. The sight of that helicopter is the literal manifestation of all their hard work, their communication, their resourcefulness.
It's the visual climax, the sound of those rotor blades. That is the final definitive counterpoint to the too quiet atmosphere that started this whole ordeal. Civilization is here, isolation is over.
But the script is smart. It doesn't let them off the hook just yet. It introduces one last physical threat, the danger of the rescue process itself. The warning comes immediately. Hold on, the wind is strong, stay close to me.
This is a nod to the reality of these high-stakes extractions. A helicopter hovering over uneven ground creates a massive downwash. These are powerful, dangerous winds. This final moment, it forces Mike and Jake to stay coordinated, to stay vigilant. They can't just relax and celebrate yet.
Right, they have to survive the rescue itself.
They have to survive the final, most dangerous logistical challenge. They have to follow commands, make sure they aren't separated or knocked over by that rotor wash.
And you hear the last few moments of action, the commands during the airlift. Buddy inside! Come on! It's just urgent. It's action-oriented. It's a controlled scramble to safety.
It's the decisive moment. The physical transfer from the hostile environment to the secure vessel. The entire narrative has hinged on efficiency and speed, and the extraction is the final test of that. They are successfully pulled away from the island and all the challenges they conquered.
And finally, we get to the aftermath. The sense of closure, confirming who did what, acknowledging competence. That explicit gratitude. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike.
That acknowledgement is crucial for a couple of reasons. If we assume Mike is the one being thanked, it reinforces his role as, say, the technical or mental leader who made the rescue happen.
By fixing the radio or providing that mental framework?
Right. Or, if we assume it's Jake speaking, he's explicitly recognizing his friend's contribution to their shared success. And that's necessary for the emotional healing process to begin. The shared trauma is acknowledged through gratitude.
And the final summary just wraps up their entire emotional journey perfectly. It's a clear farewell to the place of their struggle and a recognition of what they actually endured. Goodbye, Island. We made it home. I can't believe it. We survived.
They went from zero escape to the ultimate triumph in a record time. What this AI film transcript really shows is a perfect execution of the survival checklist. And it's driven entirely by competence, coordination, and that rapid strategic pivoting we talked about. The narrative is so successful because it focuses relentlessly on problem solving, not on passive suffering.
Okay, before we move to the recap, we have to go back. We have to tackle those two critical narrative details that we kind of deferred. The too quiet ocean and the radio that was added to the leaves. These are the threads the AI script just leaves dangling.
Right. Let's start with the silence. Why did the AI choose that? Why open the film with that really unsettling phrase, "It's so quiet out here, too quiet"? It seems designed to create a tension that's outside of just, immediate physical danger.
It sets a tone, doesn't it? That the island isn't just remote, but that it might be abnormal or hostile in a way they can't immediately understand. It heightens the stakes beyond just being geographically isolated.
I think it functions as a metaphor for the profound psychological isolation of a post-digital breakdown.
Say more about that.
The quiet suggests a total absence of everything. No distant shipping noises, no planes flying overhead, no residual noise pollution from civilization. It emphasizes the absolute, total break from the infrastructure of global connectivity. It makes their plight truly absolute. A normal remote island would still have some, you know, faint evidence of the outside world. This place seems scrubbed clean of it, and that is terrifying.
And then there's the mystery of the radio's placement. Something added to the leaves. We talked about debris versus a previous survivor. Which one gives you the most compelling drama?
Oh, the previous survivor theory is dramatically superior, by far. If the radio was just debris, it's luck. It's a random chance. But if it was placed there, added to the leaves, that implies a deliberate act of concealment by another human. Someone who either perished trying to fix it, or maybe have left the island and never came back for it.
So the object they found isn't just a tool, it's a ghost story.
Exactly.
It reminds them that someone else was here, that someone else attempted this escape, and now they are relying on that person's failure or success.
Precisely. It adds this layer of retroactive tension. Mike and Jake succeeded where this previous anonymous person either failed or simply ran out of time. It subtly reinforces the urgency. They cannot let the island win twice. The AI script uses that minimal description to inject this profound depth into the island's backstory without ever having to spell it out.
This has been a really remarkable deep dive into how a compressed, an AI-generated narrative can actually function as a textbook on human resilience. We've traced Mike and Jake's journey from zero escape all the way to we survived. So let's quickly recap the 3 essential takeaways for you, the learner.
First, we established the speed of successful resource acquisition. Getting that food and fire is critical, and not just for biology, but for morale. That early bite was a monumental psychological victory. You're provided the energy they needed for the harder building phase.
Second, the absolute necessity of maintaining that crucial cognitive framework. The difference between being passively lost and being actively not found yet. That reframing, keeping the locus of control internal, that dictates whether you look for solutions or you just succumb to paralyzing despair.
And third, the profound significance of having specialized knowledge, the radio discovery and the rapid repair. It just flipped the entire scenario. It went from a long-term endurance test to an imminent rescue operation. Competence, especially technical competence under pressure, is the ultimate multiplier of hope. It's the accelerator of rescue.
So if we connect this compressed high-efficiency story to the bigger picture of survival narratives, in literature and film, what does this transcript really demonstrate about how we prioritize things?
It demonstrates that modern survival stories are, I think, increasingly focused on competence over suffering. The audience for this kind of narrative, they're looking for solutions. They're looking for agency. Mike and Jake didn't waste time on psychological breakdowns. They prioritized that universal sequence. Shelter, fire, communication. The successful survivor is a triage expert.
Absolutely. And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to consider as you reflect on Mike and Jake's sort of perfect execution of the survival checklist.
If you were stranded with a friend, and you know that successful survival requires a specialized skill set, what specific non-negotiable skill would you be the one to provide?
Would you be the expert fixer of complex technology, the emotional anchor providing all the confidence? Or the master forager, the one who gets that critical first bite?
And let's double down on the narrative analysis. This short AI script, by minimizing the suffering and maximizing the success, it's almost a manual for resilience. But does this rapid, competent survival story actually make for good, deep drama, which often requires that profound psychological decline? Or does it only serve as an efficient, knowledge-based manual designed for a world that just prioritizes fast results? That's the challenge for the modern storyteller.
Food for thought indeed. That wraps up this deep dive into 2 friends, 1 island, 0 escape. We hope you feel thoroughly informed and maybe just a little more prepared for the unexpected quiet of the ocean.